Hi you guys, I hope you guys are having a great Monday. I'm sorry I'm not able to make it with you guys tonight, but I'm excited to share with you a little bit about work and community. So before we begin, I found this graphic and I'd love to share it with you. It says, what is on my to-do list today? Oh right, everything. I know that it is a Monday night and you guys are experiencing Monday blues, and I hope that tonight is a little refreshing, being able to share the purpose of work and a new perspective for everyone in the class. So there are a couple things that I'd love to share with you guys tonight. The first is just being able to understand what is work for you personally and why do we work, what is the purpose within work, and then also looking at work within our community. So for the first one, I know you guys received a handout, and within that handout are 3 bullet points at the very top. First, I would love for you to write down a couple bullet points of your story and characteristics within that. So a couple bullet points of who you are as a person. Okay, and then for the second one, write down a couple bullet points of the story that you work in the organization that you are at. So for me, I work in admissions, so I could either write admissions or Azusa Pacific and characteristics within those organizations. Okay, and for the third exercise, I would love for you to write down a couple bullet points of those who are affected by your organization. What characteristics do they encompass and experience? Okay, the reason why I had you guys do that was to recognize that it is Monday and we are all busy, and I want us to have a big picture perspective as we are listening to all these different speeches and being able to hear different perspectives. And so I would love for us to have this big picture perspective as we are listening, even specifically on work and community. So for the first is, what is work? And I found from the article Calling and Theology of Work, it says, our jobs are not necessarily the most important aspect of our calling or our service in Christ's work of redemption. First, we must remember that work is not limited to paid work. The work God leads us to may be unpaid work, or raising children, or being able to care for someone who's disabled. And so I really think it's important for us to redefine even what work means. It's not just your 8 to 5, but it's every hour of that 24 hours that you're given, and being able to have glory and purpose within all of that as well. And then the article continues to talk about that we need to look at the world's needs at large and being able to figure out our skill sets and being able to meet those needs as well, and being able to be self-aware within that too. For the second one, I wanted to talk about why it is that we work. In John Mark Comer's book, Loveology, he talks about how we were created to work, but not just any kind of work, to work for human flourishing. I know that we talked about that word a couple times this week during entrepreneurship. We need to recapture a theology of vocation. The word vocation comes from a Latin word meaning calling. I believe there is a calling on every person's life to partner with God in their corner of the garden and to work for human flourishing. I believe God calls pastors like myself, and God calls architects and artists and accountants and stay-at-home moms and baristas and mortgage brokers and on down the list. We need the full spectrum of vocations for Eden, not just spiritual vocations, but every human on the planet doing what God made them to do. The first thing God does with Adam is put him in the garden to work it and take care of it. Everybody needs a gardening project. And then he talked about 3 different bullet points that I'd love to share with you guys. The first was freedom in our identity. It is so important that we recognize that we do not have to adhere to the society norms of what it looks like to be an identity. You are free within that, and so God calls you to have freedom within that, and I know Timothy Keller talked about that in Every Good Endeavor. The second one is that you cannot base your decisions in life based off of your happiness, because as we know, emotions are fleeting, and that happiness that you once experienced at the beginning will become fleeting towards the end of your job. And then the third one is purpose. And your work influences your community. The article that I received from class, it talked a lot about how your purpose within your job should be to glorify God, and how there may be days that you don't fully see that, but there's also an aspect of faith within that as well. And then this next point that I want to talk to you guys about is work and community. Work unifies the human race and carries out the will of God. That is the bottom line within this entire presentation, is that being able to work unifies the community at large because you're able to rely on everyone else. And then there's a couple questions that I'd love for you guys to look at. It's on your handout, and really reflect of where you're at within that spectrum as well. And last but not least, as we kind of look at who we are as workers, it's so important for us to recognize that our job is to glorify God, and Timothy Keller talks a lot about that. I hope you guys have a great night.